Yeah. I think that what you just were speaking to, Aaron, is a perfect segue into our third action item, which is unity as the new normal. And I want to start with a quote that is just going to piggyback right on something that you just said. But this was from your private Facebook group that you were so kind to share with me. But you say, you don't heal your shadows by allowing them to stay in the darkness. You have to bring them into the light of love so that they can be corrected, balanced, and healed. Darkness is simply a false point of view. It will not expose and heal itself. We must bring it into the light. Likewise, if we want to create unity consciousness on earth for this generation and the generations to come, we must continue to expose and correct everything that does not create unity. That is the only way it happens. The important point, though, is that we must bring that light without attachment to the outcome. Simply do our part, be a light in the world as best we can, and let the chips fall wherever reality decides. And there's so much, goodness and meat in that.
Come on, man. I got the chills all over that shit.
That's good. Who wrote that?
Yeah, I know. You're like nodding, like, yeah, I agree with him. But the part that I really want to highlight, because I've heard, even though you say it so beautifully, I've heard the same concept that we need to bring awareness and light to the darkness. Christians would say the same thing, right? Mm-hmm. But the differentiating factor, I think, in the way that you put it, is not having an attachment to the outcome.
Yeah, bingo.
And that's, I think, where our ego claws into, it anchors into the outcome of what it thinks should happen. And I know best. And if it's not my way, that's not the best way. And I think that that's really important for myself. This is a reminder and a lesson that I absolutely have not perfected yet. Excuse me. But I think that that's where a lot of the separation can actually have its root in. If we aren't attached to that outcome, and if we're just doing our best, and if that's not enough, I can't do any more than that. But this is my best, and this is what I'm putting forward. But this isn't me. I'm not putting a label on it. It's not, this outcome is not me. And I think that that's a great place for people to start, is realizing that you are not that label, even if you're telling yourself that I am this or I am that. Let go of that outcome, which is hard. It's not just a flip of a switch. I think it's a consistent reminder, maybe on a daily basis, and then it becomes that sort of unconsciously conscious. But I think that that's a really beautiful way to put it.
Yeah. Yeah. The outcome is where we contaminate things, right? Where the ego gets involved. And we did that a lot in Christianity, man.
Yeah.
It was just so opposite of not my will, but thy will be done. Like, that's what Jesus prayed, is like, no, my will be done. Damn it. Like,
yeah. Yeah.
And that's not unity either. I mean, I think even in terms of raising awareness, it's like unity has to be the foundation upon which we raise awareness, because your pain is my pain. Your suffering is my suffering. We're one. And so if I'm raising awareness of something that is damaging or harmful to other people in the world who are one with me, it's from the same mentality of like when we discovered that lead was in all the paint in our houses and in our silverware, and we were poisoning us. Like, you just raise awareness of what's causing suffering to those who you are one with, right?
Yeah.
And that's the motivation you're sharing it from, not to make anyone an enemy or create any kind of separation. In fact, it is for the desire to create unity, because this thing here we've acknowledged is coming in between our unity. It's not creating more unity, it's creating separation. And if we want to be true to our polarity and who we are, we just shine the light on it. And those who are of that polarity will shine the light as well.
Yeah.
Totally.
I think that you've said it so many times, but I think this is a perfect moment for you to maybe give one more distinction between discernment and judgment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. This gets so confused. again, when we get to non-duality teachings, we can get so heady with it where the teaching really becomes more of a distraction, right? And that happens, I've noticed, in the judgment discernment category, where we get so meticulous about our words in non-duality of like, well, that implies an other, and don't say that, and that implies duality. And there's some purpose to that when we're learning about oneness and non-duality in a teaching format, but we can get too carried away with it to where it's like we're deleting words from our vocabulary. And it's like, look, all words are equally untrue. Like all words are just symbols and pointers. And so if the core of who we are is non-dual, and we understand that, we can use words as simple pointers. Like when I say there's injustice, I'm not implying a they that is causing the injustice and they are wrong. And like the mind is implying the separate other, right? Yep. So discernment and judgment are like that. It's, it's so ridiculous that people would pretend like you shouldn't expose corruption in the world. But if you're walking down the street and you saw a man beating up a woman, like you wouldn't have time to get all non-dual with your concepts and wonder if you should rise to action. Like you sprint into action. Why? Because you perceived an injustice. Now, did you need to hate the abuser to do that? Did you need to see the woman as a poor, helpless victim? I mean, there's no even time to see them that way. Your heart sees the injustice and is moved with compassion to correct it and bring balance to it. And it's like, that's the only motivation we come from. That's discernment. Where we bring in value motives of superior, inferior, good, bad, right, wrong, that's judgment. And so we leave the judgment out, but the sage very much has discernment, right? I mean, it takes almost no common sense at all to know, like, if I see a dark alleyway at night and I'm alone, probably shouldn't walk down the dark alley.
Right.
It's wisdom.
It's like I'm not projecting who might be down the dark alley. And I hate those kinds of people, right? That's the judgment. Discernment is an aspect of wisdom. Wisdom is an aspect of who we are. Wisdom is an aspect of authenticity, right? Authenticity is your ability to radiate who you are in every moment without any concern about the actions of the other. I'm going to be myself no matter what's happening outside of me. And so I think a lot of times the word games we play, we get so heady with our spiritual teachings, it becomes very inauthentic.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And on this point, even if it is getting a little heady or a little challenging to figure out, okay, what is unity? Well, there's blatant examples of what's not.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start by like moving away from those. We've seen complete hoarder mentality when it comes to toilet paper in the last year and a half. Right. And like that's as practical as it gets, right? We've seen, this term Karen has literally like surfaced as a deity for
bad time to be called
like
Karen. Bad time to be named Karen.
Tough time for all the Karens out there. We got a couple in our life who we love.
Yeah, we love Karen.
We're trying to make it better for them. But like it's literally like, okay, there's some literal examples of how we can start practicing unity. And even if it's picking off low-hanging fruit to begin with, which is, what is it not? Well, it's not these types of scarcity mindset, hoarder mentality. Let's go accumulate all the toilet paper and food in the grocery store when things get crazy. Let's be a little bit better about, maybe it's, this kind of social justice warrior mentality when it comes to, mask wearing or not mask wearing.
Yeah.
How can we observe that and pivot? And even if it starts with that, those are some of the decisions and some of the commitments that I think we're ready to start making. And paying attention to even just the level of consumption. This doesn't even have to be with the pandemic to begin with. It's kind of going into those, what are the practical decisions that we can start making in our daily life that contributes to unity? Well, what about consumption? What about sustainable business practices? Recycling, shipping, packaging. We've made a commitment in our business to really prioritize eco canisters. Something like supporting the sustainability of agriculture and farms through biodynamic farming. And even if it's like literally looking at something like plants and animals in this unity consciousness as well. Mm-hmm. We don't have the layer of separation that we so often behave as though we do. And let's start treating these things that are alive with just as much respect as others. And like, these are it sounds trivial, but these are practical things that I'm committed to taking steps towards, that you make these little investments on a daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly basis. All of a sudden you've accumulated a little bit more of unity, and you're start a little bit easier to delineate, okay, what's a choice towards contributing to unity instead of division. And so for me, like, that's where it breaks down. It starts small. It doesn't need to be life changing or world changing today. It can actually be in the small decisions.
Yeah.
And I would argue that it has to be in this, in the small decisions. There is no, as you say in your video, there is no band of angels or angel, savior that's going to come down and make everything perfect on earth. You say it so beautifully, but like, you're like, we are the angels. We can literally change things. And that starts with our daily decisions, everything that Chase just laid out. And, unity is not only unity within humanity, but also unity with our home, our earth. I think that that's something that, with global warming and climate change and everything like that, like our earth is literally like screaming at us right now. And in the Law of One, it was really interesting hearing Ra speak to the changes in the earth, the heat specifically. That our world is literally like every summer, the West Coast is on fire. Australia is on fire, all these places are on fire. And Ra is saying that there's almost like when you get angry, you feel the heat in your body rise. It's like the earth has extra heat right now that it has to get out. And this might be a little woo or a little out there for people, but man, we're seeing it everywhere. And I think it just points back to that separation from even our earth.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a symptom of our separation that we think that what we do to Mother Earth is not what we're doing to ourselves. And it's like, what could be crazier than that?
Right.
Unity consciousness gives you the awareness that what I do to the other, I do to myself. And that's why taking responsibility of the little things is usually the fastest way to see dramatic changes in your quality of life, is when you just stop letting the little things sneak by you anymore, like a messy room, you're kind of cheating on your diet too much. And, when life is challenging and we're moving through things, like we want to eat more junk food for the comfort of it. And I don't want to clean my room up, I'm too stressed. And we think that cleaning the room might add to the stress, or cleaning up our diet might add to the stress. And in actuality, it's the opposite, right? It translates in that the way you are with one thing is the way you are with everything. It's all kind of connected. So I started to notice at a certain point that when my room is really messy, it's because my mind is really messy. Like I got a lot of noise going on. I'm not present. I'm not taking care of the little things. So it's like the same lack of responsibility I have to just kind of throw my shorts on the floor and like, I'll pick it up later, is the same irresponsibility I have when that negative thought slips on by. And I just go, yeah, whatever. F that guy. And I don't say, I should take that thought captive for a moment and say, that's not the right way of seeing this. If we're not doing that with the little things, we surely are not going to do them with the big things. Yeah. So sometimes you can back engineer it by saying, I'm going to be mindful about everything I do. I'm going to be present and take responsibility. And it translates to this massive expansion of your awareness, to where all the ways you lie to yourself and gaslight yourself become more obvious. And you're like, oh, I'm actually hurting myself by thinking that. I'm going to take responsibility of that thought now.